Welcome to Norfolk Perspective City Slice. I'm Bob Batcher, and I'd like to say I've got a friend on the sofa, William Harrell, who is the President and CEO of Hampton Roads Transit. How you doing?
Doing great.
I got to say, I'm going to share with the viewer the first time I think I really met you. I was in a room full of about 100 people who were really engaged in designing the future of light rail, and all of a sudden this ray of hope and a giant smile came through the door, and it was you.
Yes.
You're excited about this stuff, aren't you?
I really am, because transportation is an important element of the economic prosperity of Hampton Roads, and we provide a very vital service, getting people to work, to medical appointments, taking people to school. It's an important service we provide.
Okay, let me talk about that, because when I think of HRT, and on the way into the studio today, I must have passed, I don't know, probably 10 or 12 buses. It had HRT written all over it. One of them had Max written on it. But it's not just a bus service. Of course, I know it as the Tide, but it's not just a light rail service.
Absolutely. We provide ferry service between Norfolk and Portsmouth. 90% of our core business are buses, including Max buses that take people to major employment centers. It's just part of the network, and when you think of transportation, transit is that important component that gets people to where they need to go.
Okay, now how can I mention this? Because when I think of mass transit, I think of taking a bunch of people from one location to another. But I was behind a car the other day that had HRT written on it, and it was for a more personalized service. So you're still offering those services too, huh?
Yes, we provide paratransit services for those that are eligible for that particular service, and that's from door to door. In addition to that, the traffics program where people carpool and van pool. So we have a mix of various services, but the bottom line, we're trying to get people to their destinations.
Okay, now I'm going to test you on this one now, because there's two tunnels that connect two cities, and there's a toll on those tunnels. But there's another alternative to get between those two cities.
Oh, absolutely.
How can we be tactful about that? You have a ferry.
Yes, we do. We really do. And we've seen, as a result of the tolls, ridership has really increased on the ferries. In addition to that, the Elizabeth River crossings, which is actually doing that Midtown and Downtown Tunnel rehab, are funding $2.1 million worth of additional service. So we have bus routes, the 44, the 45, and the 47, which are having increased frequency and also weekend service to give people an alternative to having to pay that toll. Okay. And of course, they're also paying for additional service with the ferry beginning at 5:30 in the morning. We have a lot of Coast Guard members that are trying to get to work. So there are some means to navigate the tunnels without having to pay a toll.
Cool. Can I make a confession?
Please.
I have a 32-year-old and a 30-year-old who think that's a boat ride. Because when they were little girls, it was 50 cents at the time, we take them for a boat ride.
Absolutely.
They didn't know they were on mass transit.
Absolutely, and we want to add some ferries, and the paddle wheel is a big attraction, and we're trying to decide whether we're going to have paddle wheels on the new ferries. But I think that's part of the panache of why people enjoy that.
Well, if you're thinking about it, I hope you do it.
Yes.
Because the paddle is really, it doesn't really move the thing, though, does it?
No, it's more aesthetic than anything else, but our maintenance people would prefer we not have it. But, you know, I think that's part of the fun of the ride and the nostalgia.
I'm sitting here trying to figure out, how can I trip you up? But there is no question that you can't answer. You've gotten yourself, now, how long have you been now President CEO?
2 years, a little over 2 years, and it's been a lot of fun. There have been challenges along the way, but there's a very talented staff, and my focus has been to really point people towards a vision of us becoming the most efficient and customer-driven transit agency in the state. So that's been my role, kind of pointing the organization, working very closely with the board, but the real technicians are the ones, and the operators are the ones that deserve the credit for really moving the organization.
You've got a team that is totally, I got a chance to meet a lot of the team when we were building light rail and opening it up, and yeah, you've got a team that is just top.
Yes, and you know, we're not the old Hampton Roads Transit. We have a lot of new players, those that were able to help the former president and CEO get the project over the finish line, and the TIDE is an amazing resource for this region, and we're hoping that more people will embrace that as a regional asset.
Well, in fact, that was the meeting that I was involved in helping to facilitate, was really that community engagement, which you've really pushed for. I mean, it would have been a whole lot easier probably just to have the traffic engineers draw it up and say, this is where it's going to go. But you've encouraged that we really engage, along with our council, to engage the community in creating the vision for the future of light rail. So we've been doing the community engagement meetings. We'll have some more in October. Is that really your style? I mean, is that really kind of get the customer engaged?
Oh, absolutely. I believe in order to drive the future, you've got to have the buy-in of the general public. So that's always been part of my management style, and I also bring my staff in as well as the board. So, you know, I want the community involved. We need to know what the community wants, and out of that, I think we can help fine-tune services and really be in a position to address the needs of the customer.
Now, the viewers are going to say, you know, I've seen him before, and about a month ago or so, you were actually in front of the council. We aired that. You gave a wonderful presentation. You kind of went through the slides about the expansion to the Navy base, but then you really came alive. And I could tell it was from your heart about talking about revisioning what Hampton Roads Transit and how it can operate with Connect Hampton Roads.
Well,
let's talk about it.
Yes, and that is the critical point. You know, I've identified a structural deficiency in terms of how we're funded.
How does it work?
Well, each city each year buys as much transit as they can afford. So we're competing with other
independent of each other.
Independent of each other. So in terms of navigating from the peninsula, you know, to the south side, it's very difficult. We don't have a consistent service day. In some cases, cities terminate their service at 7:00 p.m. So I have customers that say, you get me to work, but I can't get home. So what we're talking about is Connect Hampton Roads, an opportunity to really embrace for people to understand how we're funded and to hopefully develop a conversation around how we can improve transit in a comprehensive way. So no matter whether you're in Norfolk or in Hampton and Newport News, you know you're going to have service from 5:30 in the morning until midnight, and you can count on consistent service. That's really what Connect Hampton Roads is all about.
So truly, so when we talked about the ferry, we talked about the paratransit. I mean, it really is a whole system that then is coordinated through the whole region.
Exactly, and that way it's a more integrated system that you can count on, and then that will help us, I believe, not only serve the transit dependent in a better way, but also invite choice riders like you and I that have a choice whether to choose transit or not. And as congestion rises in Hampton Roads, that is a critical issue for this region.
Well, I thought it was kind of cool because I live right off of, I can't do it as well as you do, Route 1.
Okay.
Bus Route 1. And I had the opportunity the other day when I went to Connect Hampton Roads to kind of let you know how I felt about that, because I haven't ridden that bus, because I don't know when it comes, and yet you gave me the opportunity through Connect Hampton Roads to kind of let me share my vision. So everybody can do that, right?
Oh, absolutely, and that's what the survey is all about. So we encourage everyone to go to connecthamptonroads.com. Hopefully you can flash that, because we want to get thousands of Hampton Roads residents and visitors to respond. And out of that, we intend to develop a robust plan in terms of how we can improve transit services. And the third element after we develop the plan is to come up with funding recommendations. And we anticipate working with the cities, the General Assembly, to come up with a reasonable phase plan for how a region like Hampton Roads can be better served by public transportation as we improve the roads, bridges, and tunnels.
Well, and one of the things I've heard throughout our community outreach that we've had with the expansion of light rail, that people are really quick to talk about, not today, but where their wishes and dreams would be for the future. And that's kind of what I sense in doing the survey, that it really is building toward the future, not necessarily for September 15th future.
Exactly.
But the next generation of how this region can connect. Now, you're also taking a route of not just kind of hearing from me, but the advocacy role. I mean, as a voter, as a taxpayer, as a customer of yours, I can have some influence too. Let me kind of refer to an ad I just saw that you're running.
What's my vision for a great transit system? How about one that gets my employees to the job on time, every day? One that cuts down on transfers so they can move faster. One that connects neighborhoods all across Hampton Roads, saves time and money, theirs and mine. What's my vision for a great transit system? One that works.
Get in on the conversation. Connect Hampton Roads. Take the survey now for a chance to win a $25 gift card. Visit connecthamptonroads.com.
I got to say, I kind of missed the point about the $25 gift card, but it doesn't matter. What I sensed, though, was you're kind of really being frank and honest in these commercials that maybe the bus service today isn't what you and I, a customer of choice, would want. But you're committed to hearing what I think should be a vision.
Absolutely, and the condition of our current bus service is directly tied to how we're funded, and that's why Connect Hampton Roads is so important. As we hear from customers, as we hear from potential customers, we believe that will be the foundation of developing a more comprehensive transit plan that we can eventually take to the General Assembly, where we can become advocates for better public transportation. You know, the major funding bill last year, HB 2313, which was a landmark piece of legislation. But with the over $200 million that will be coming into our region, our legislators made it clear it was for roads, bridges, and tunnels only.
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure. Now, while we celebrate that, public transportation was not directly involved, and we think that that needs to be addressed going forward. But again, the foundation is hearing from the public so that we can build a plan that the residents, the tourists of this region want to see.
Well, I guess I should say your customer, the taxpayer, and the voter.
Absolutely.
I mean, we can have William Harrell up in Richmond, but if you're followed behind with 10 or 15,000 advocates that are saying, we think mass transit is important, it's going to make a difference.
It really will, and our hope eventually is to take bus loads with us to Richmond, because I've heard that from legislators.
Do you have a route that goes up there?
Yeah, well, we'll make sure we do.
Okay, what do you see as the next challenge?
Well, you know, I think we've done very well from a public standpoint, you know, close to 8,000 surveys at this point.
That is, by the way, a record in the book that I know of, and getting that kind of response as quickly as you did. So definitely the public cares.
Oh, absolutely. A representative sample, in talking with many companies about it, is about 1,600 people is a representative sample of the Hampton Roads region. So when we're looking at over 8,000 people responding to a survey, it just shows the level of pent-up interest in public transportation. So we're excited about that, and we think this is a foundation that will help the city of Norfolk, which has really had to bear, I think, the leadership as it relates to public transportation, funding over $18 million a year dedicated to the Tide bus service, the ferry, and all of the paratransit services and everything that Norfolk provides. So Norfolk's been a leader, but it's time for the region to be part of that conversation, and that's really what Hampton Roads is all about. Connect Hampton Roads.
You got it. And we're going to be having some more conversations, too, about the expansion to the Navy base, and we're really anxious to hear from the public. Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
We got about 30 seconds left. I want you to get me on Route 1 bus.
Well, I think it's an opportunity. We're adding Wi-Fi to many of our buses, so you'll have an opportunity to do emails, meet interesting people. It may take you a little longer to get to your destination, but it'll be worthwhile. If we're successful with Connect Hampton Roads, and I know we will be, it's going to take us a few years, but with your help, we can do it. We believe that we'll be in a position where buses will not only come once an hour, which is the case now on many routes, but every 15 minutes during peak hours. That's why people ride light rail, because it's affordable, it's safe, and you can count on it. The buses can be the same way, so we're excited about it. Please join us at connecthamptonroads.com.
I'll go get my day pass.
Great.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for joining us.